So finally, we conclude again with the most consequential question, the question that will have the gravest consequences for the rest of our lives. Are Americans and Chinese going to let the forces of history drive us to a war that would be catastrophic for both? Or can we summon the imagination and courage to find a way to survive together, to share the leadership in the 21st century, or, as Xi Jinping, to create a new form of great power relations? That's the issue I've been pursuing passionately for the last 2 years. I've had the opportunity to talk and indeed to listen to leaders of all the relevant governments, Beijing, Washington, Seoul, Tokyo, to thought leaders across the spectrum of both the arts and business. I wish I had more to report. The good news is that leaders are increasingly aware of this Thucydidean dynamic and the dangers that it poses. The bad news is that nobody has a feasible plan for escaping history as usual. So it's clear to me that we need some ideas outside the box of conventional statecraft, indeed from another page or another space, which is what brings me to TED today and which brings me to a request. This audience includes many of the most creative minds on the planet who get up in the morning and think not only about how to manage the world we have, but how to create worlds that should be. So I'm hopeful that as this sinks in and as you reflect on it, some of you are going to have some bold ideas, actually some wild ideas, that when we find will make a difference in this space. And just to remind you, if you do, this won't be the first time. Let me remind you what happened right after World War II. A remarkable group of Americans and Europeans and others, not just from government, but from the world of culture and business, engaged in a collective surge of imagination. And what they imagined and what they created was a new international order, the order that's allowed you and me to live our lives, all of our lives, without great power war, and with more prosperity than was ever seen before on the planet. So a remarkable story. Interestingly, every pillar of this project that produced these results, when first proposed, was rejected by the foreign policy establishment as naive or unrealistic. So my favorite is the Marshall Plan. After World War II, Americans felt exhausted. They had demobilized 10 million troops. They were focused on an urgent domestic agenda. But as people began to appreciate how devastated Europe was and how aggressive Soviet communism was, Americans eventually decided to tax themselves 1.5% of GDP every year for 4 years and send that money to Europe to help reconstruct these countries, including Germany and Italy, whose troops had just been killing Americans. Amazing. This also created the United Nations. Amazing. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the World Bank, NATO, all of these elements of an order for peace and prosperity. So, in a word, what we need to do is do it again. Okay? And I think now we need a surge of imagination, creativity, informed by history. For, as the philosopher Santayana reminded us, in the end, only those who refuse to study history are condemned to repeat it. So, thank you.